Welcome to the Finance-Auditing Committee of April 9th. It's not April 19th, is it? No, it is. What is the date today? 25th.
Yesterday was 4/24/24. It was a palindrome, wasn't it? Isn't that a palindrome? 4/24/24. No, you go forward and then backwards. It's the same. Yeah, you write down 4/24/24.
Duly noted. And with that, can we have a roll call, please?
Thank you. Good morning.
The teacher in me.
Starting with Director Dorsey, who's absent. Judice.
Here.
Grosval, who's absent. Hernandez. Maston.
Here.
Bordoni.
Here.
Vice Chair Farr.
President.
Chair Rabbit.
Here.
And President Cochran.
Here.
Thank you. You have a quorum and you are still a committee of the whole. Also in the room, you have Directors Garbarino, Hill, Terrio, and Thier.
Great, thank you very much. And we'll move on then to item number 3, which is ratification of previous actions by the Auditor Controller. And I believe that Joe Wire is going to take this one for us today.
Yes,
Those, just so you know, that's pages 5 to 22. The PFM report starts on page 9. We don't have anyone from PFM today, so Joe's going to cover that real briefly as well.
Monique is not available today, and so she will come back next month for her usual report. I do not have anything to report on it, but I'm happy to ask any questions anybody has on those slides.
Anyone have any questions for Joe on any of those items? Seeing no hands raised, can I get a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Before we take a vote, is there anyone, any comment on this particular item?
We have no speakers from the public on this item.
And can we can take a voice vote, correct?
Yes.
So all those in favor of ratification of the previous actions by the Auditor Controller, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Please say no. Hearing no opposition, that does pass unanimously with all present. Moving on to item 4A, which is a budget increase in the fiscal year 23-24 Bridge Division capital budget for project 1923, the Golden Gate Suspension Bridge Seismic Retrofit Project, which we just heard from Building and Operations. And John is here to answer any questions going forward. Colleagues, any questions on the financing of what we heard from BMO? I was going to ask a snitty remark asking if there was any kind of environmental review of any noise, potential noise emanating from the seismic upgrades going forward, just to make sure we're covered in case that happens, but I won't. With that, could I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Before we take the vote, is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak to this item?
We have no speakers for this item.
And again, we could do a voice vote on this. All those in favor of the budget increase, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Please say no. Hearing no opposition, it does pass unanimously with all present. Moving on to item 4B, budget increase in the fiscal year 23-24 Ferry Division capital budget for project 2441, which is the Larkspur Terminal fuel hose replacement. And we have Todd Leach.
Hi, sir.
And she told me, and I was trying to think.
Thank you, Chair Raven. Good morning, members of the committee. The item before you is to authorize a budget increase to the Ferry Division Capital Project number 2441, Larkspur Terminal fuel hose and replacement, for the amount of $57,000. The fueling system at the Larkspur Ferry Terminal consists of 4 75,000-gallon fuel tanks, 2 transfer pumps, and 4 filtration systems. Also 10 flexible hoses, 3 of which connect our shoreside piping to our floating camels that our vessels fuel at. These flexible hoses accommodate for the up and down motion of the camels with the changes in the tide. In 2017, one of these hoses suffered a crack and a leak, which ended up with a discharge of 47 gallons of diesel fuel into the water. Ferry had been developed an equipment exchange protocol as part of its preventive maintenance plan, and as required by an August 2021 injunction resulting from the spill, we have to renew these hoses on a 5-year interval. Staff created the project budget with the intent of utilizing ferry maintenance mechanics to assist the contractor in performing the hose exchange. We have since decided that we are going to require the contractor to conduct the hose exchange without being directly involved in the project. December of last year, the district issued an RFQ for the hose replacement, to which we received one single response from the less secure company in the amount of $59,411. Staff reviewed the cost and determined it to be fair and reasonable. Additionally, staff reviewed the project to ensure specifications were not restrictive and reached out to other contractors who decided to submit quotation. Staff learned that some of the contractors decided not to submit a quotation due to the nature of the work being over water and a relative low project cost. The Larkspur fuel hose replacement project is included in the fiscal year 23-24 Ferry Division Capital Project in the amount of $97,000. Staff recommends the Finance and Auditing Committee authorize an increase to the project budget in the amount of $57,000, resulting in the total project budget of $155,000. This concludes my presentation. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Looking to my colleagues, Director Giudice.
Thank you, Chair. So the hoses have to be replaced every 5 years because the potential of an environmental
Yes.
impact, or okay.
They're right above the water.
Okay.
And so they're in an area that's a corrosive environment with a lot of salt in the air. And so it's preventative. We could, maybe get by a little bit longer than one might fail again. So it's a preventative thing to replace them before we have another failure.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, I will look for a motion to approve.
So
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. And before we take our vote, is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this item?
we have no speakers on this item.
And again, we can do a voice vote if okay with my colleagues. All those in favor of the budget increase for the ferry fuel hoses, please say aye.
Aye.
Is there anyone opposed? Please say no. Hearing no opposition, that does pass unanimously with all present. Thank you. Moving on, there's no action items for item number 5. We'll move into item number 6, which is the annual review of the district's 457B deferred compensation and 401A defined contribution programs with our own Joe Wire.
Thank you very much to the committee. This is, as I said, an annual review, so you're not taking an action here. It's best practice for the governing body to view this program. So we've been this forward for a number of years. 57 plan is a deferred compensation plan, which the district sets up and its employees voluntarily contribute to it, and they have their own accounts and they keep those accounts into retirement. There also is a very small, that's about 99% of this, the funds in this program. The other 1% are 3 small programs that were set up by the district to help attract or retain employees. And those are the 401A plans, and I'll talk about both of them. In your report on the, just from an outlay, this particular program is run by a contractor, and then the districts after myself as an administrator, but we really contract out those duties to ICMARC, which now calls themselves Mission Square. And they are a national company that works entirely with public sector companies, so they cover public employers, so they understand our needs and our employees' needs. The first things, we've been with Mission Square and their predecessor for a couple of decades now. We have their contract is coming to a close. We were looking at renegotiating and whether or not to go out to an RFP. So we started a negotiation process with them, with our contractor that we hire to help us monitor Mission Square. And the Mission Square has come back with a proposal, and we will bring that proposal forward to you in a couple of months. The proposal looks very positive. In other words, they're reducing their fees and increasing their services, and in order to keep us. We are a good customer. They think so, and of course we think so, to do that. So you'll see something from us in a few months. That's the first part of the report, talks about that. Then looking at the plan assets, it's about $123 million now in the 457 plan. That is a significant growth this last year, basically based on the growth in the marketplace. The 401A part of the plan, those 3 small benefit plans have about a little over 1 million of them, and they've had a small increase in the number of participants. And those are participants you either qualify based on the rules set forth by the board, or you don't. It's not a voluntary type program. And in those programs, it just makes a match in 2 of them, a small match to that. Second, if you look on page 36, we talk a little bit about the fund performance. Obviously, that's a very important program when you're talking about how the funds work. The details are in the attachment of all the different funds, but the process which we use here is we have as I said, a consultant to monitor the funds process, and then they rank them over a period of years, because we are looking for longer term rather than spiked growth and then troughs. We're looking for longer term steady growth for these because of retirement funds in with. And then they're swapped out if they don't meet certain standards over a period of years. We are having one fund change this time around. It wasn't because somebody wasn't performing. It was to sort of flesh out our small cap offerings. And so we now have one in growth, one in value, and one in the middle. So we're adding that one on the value side. And that's discussed on the bottom of page 36. And then lastly, the fees. That's a very, very, very important part especially for long-term investment strategy. The districts had fees fell this last year due to changes in the investment managers to lower rates. We have about 31 basis points, which is 0.31% fee. It's about a third of what you might find on the market. And even for plans like ourselves, we're below what Morningstar says is the average, which is more 0.37. So we offer good value, in other words, good return and low fee structure. And that's something that we keep working with the vendor, reminding them that that's what we're looking for. And they have been able to deliver on that, reducing their own fees that they charge us to manage the plan. And we expect to continue to see that in the next contract with them. If I have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Great, thank you very much, Joe. Questions for Joe on this particular item? Joe, the fees are net of return? Yeah. This is an informational item only, so there's no questions from my colleagues, but is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this item?
We have no speakers from the public.
All right. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joe. I've done the dangerous thing in looking at this report in detail. And I'm looking at page 36 on the bottom with reference to the Neuberger-Berman Fund. I appreciate your explanation about changing out the small caps, but can you tell me how it coincides with the return analysis on page 40? It seems like the small cap Neuberger-Berman funds have negative rates of return. Can you explain to me about Neuberger-Berman and the fact that they are, looks like the lowest performers in regards to annualized returns and why we're selecting them?
If you're looking at my understanding, you're looking at page 40, and in the 3-year column, there is a negative number. Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, it looks like in the first year, things look pretty okay there with 13.77, but it's almost a total loss in the third year. So, but there seems to be some interest in supporting the Neuberger-Berman Fund as relates to your portion or the last paragraph, what you say in the last paragraph on page 36.
Yeah. They have a very, yes, they had definitely had negative returns. The whole market in that, so that's the average 3-year time frame. So the entire market had a downturn during that time. So they did follow the market. They they had a larger fall than the market did. In some of their longer term horizons, they do better. So it's been sort of up and down on that.
So overall,
And then yeah, you're right. Since inception, it's low.
in the long term, things are going to be okay.
Yeah, I will get to you on that one, because when I get this too, it doesn't look like that's not the data that we saw. when the fund was put in. My concern is we're just seeing a snapshot, because you're absolutely right. That doesn't look right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Sometimes if you don't look at those over the much longer time, you'll have the anomalies, especially it's volatile, a lot of vulnerabilities in the market. But there's also, that's where a lot of the opportunity for growth exists as well. So do appreciate that.
Yeah.
Any questions? And again, informational item, no one from the public.
Correct.
So we'll move on then, Joe, to the status report on the fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Yeah, thank you very much. That's on page 43. We are through the first 3 quarters of the year, so through 9 months. And as we've been discussing each time, if we take a look at page 45, which is the spreadsheet that we use to track how our actual expenditures and actual revenues are going compared to what we projected, things are doing much better than we projected, although we did know that was happening. The trends that we've been seeing for the early months have continued. If you look at that table on the line 5, which is the very bottom of the table, that's our expenses, and they're almost 20 million less than we expected. Although, as I said, we knew that was going to happen because the funds were budget to provide service for our customers demanded came back, but that has not occurred. So we've just been ramping up slowly. Line 4 is and line 3 are the revenues, and revenues are both higher than what we projected in the budget, both non-operating revenues, and that's mostly investment returns and the market change. And then also in tolls and transit fares are higher than expected, primarily in the toll area. And then lastly, that we'll be using in line 1, we'll be using less federal one-time funding than we thought we would have been using when we started out the year, what we projected to use. So overall, things have been going quite well, and we'll see that sort of more directly in the next, 2 items from now when we talk about the finances. Any questions on that one?
Go ahead.
Director Masson.
Yeah, so are you expecting then that we'll have some of the ARP3 money left over for next fiscal year?
No, we are not. We're expecting that all those funds will be expended by the end of this fiscal year. The program was set up, obviously, to expeditiously spend that money over time, and the district has been doing that. And this would be the final year of that. The program was set up to offset transit expenses. So as you've got, the transit company has a lot of expenses, and the district is using those funds to offset those per the guidelines. What that does allow the district to do is the board may have chosen, if that money wasn't available, to put toll revenue against those expenses, to offset them with toll revenue. If it doesn't need to do that, then what happens with that toll revenue, the board has other choices. And in lieu of those choices, in other words, if we start another capital project, it goes to that. But if we don't do any of those things, then it goes into the reserve, so that next year or the year after you start a capital project, or you can fund operatings or whatever you folks choose to do. That's the policy call. So some of these resources will go into the reserve for the district.
Okay, thank you, John.
Any other questions? Yep. Why don't you go ahead, Joe, and move on to the monthly review of Golden Gate Bridge, travels, bus ferries, and patronage.
Thank you for the committee. If you could turn to page 55, because that's where the actual data is. So just 2 pages on from the beginning of the item. I thought this month, again, we're through 3 quarters of the year, so it's good to know. But I thought this month, since we have March's data, I know I've been telling you that if you, and we're going to look at the middle column of each of these boxes. It's the one that's road. It's the middle column is titled Actual 23-24. And if you look down at the bottom of that, you see the March data. So the bridge box would be upper left-hand corner, middle column, bottom set of numbers there. You can see in that row that column, we started out at the beginning about 1.4 million bridge traffic, close to 1.5 million, and then down at the bottom, and then it started getting smaller and smaller as you go down the months. The number lowers all the way down to 1.2 million, well, back to 1.4. And so we're so, as I've mentioned, we're coming through the lower part of our season, which is the winter time. And we're coming back into where we get more traffic, which tends to be the spring, summer, and early fall. So that's a good sign. And it's following the regular patterns that we've seen for years here. Now, the pattern was a little broken up during COVID. Things were different then, but now it's returning to what we expect. Unfortunately, it's still less than what we used to get year. We're still running in the low 83% so of the normal traffic, but it's following that pattern. So that's a good sign that the next couple of months probably will be even better. And that's what typically would happen. I think at a point we used to say, you know, the summer traffic, you could have 5-10% of your people could be coming through rental cars and vacation and all that kind of stuff. So it can make a big difference. So we're seeing that overall the first 9 months are, you know, actual over actual. That's the one column to the right of the one we've been at shows that, you know, we're averaging about 3.5% growth from last year, and that's still a very positive sign. If we look at that same box below, the middle one, bus, is titled bus, you see the same thing is happening to bus, but not quite so much. You know, it doesn't have the peaks and valleys of the traffic of ferry and the bridge, but it does drop off a little in the wintertime. You can see we're at 120,000 back in July, and we're at 120,000 in March, but we dropped down around 100,000 in the January, February timeframe. And so that's coming back up, and that's still 10% over for the year from last year. And then looking down at ferry, which is the bottom box, again, the column, you can see we have much higher summers because of the recreational traffic. It's just nice to be water traffic, and then baseball on top of that. So now that we've come into March, it's back up to 120,000. And so you're seeing that turn up. And I expect next month and the month after will be even greater. You'll see that. And 100,000. You're back to 100,000 after a low of almost 80,000. And we'll see, you know, 26% it says for the year now, growth over last year. So in other words, very positive growth in ferry. And then the graphs that follow this, you know, discuss this over a 5-year period, if you will, for those, and I'm happy to have questions about those.
Going to the bus for a moment, you know, ridership for February and March were both up 11%, but revenues were down 22 and 9%. And those seem like an awful wild swing. I'm just wondering
There are several things going on there. One is these are the close, and bus revenue sometimes flows in late. So I think to see that here, that the next month will probably be a good month. In other words, because it'll come into the next month. The second thing that we're seeing is we're still seeing, you know, a lot of local ridership, which is lower. You know, they pay lower fares per person, and you know, riders are good, whether they be going local or they be going into the city. But we're seeing a lot of local riders. So and that's to vary from time to time how much that we see that come in. But it has grown substantially, and it's a very important or large part of our business today, and bigger so than it would have been 5 years ago.
and we're still picking up and dropping off within the city?
Yes, we are, and that is a very significant form of ridership.
Almost a third of our bus ridership is local trips within San Francisco.
Yeah.
So it helps San Francisco, and it helps us because we have buses coming in from the North Bay that, you know, don't quite meet our metrics, but then, you know, one stop we can pick up 20 people. And the next stop, another 15 on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. So we're almost 1/3 local riders within San Francisco, which will help keep our bus business alive. And it's a nice financial lifeline.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Seeing none, why don't you keep rolling? I will take public comment, 3 items simultaneously at the end.
Thank you very much. If we can turn to page 61, that's item 9A. It's your finances, your operating and revenues and expenses. And we'll stick with the front page. Behind that are all the line item for each of the divisions, and recur behind that. But if you look at the table in the middle of the front of the page with the far right-hand column is the current year. If we look at the bold lines, that's the third line down. It's a district operating revenue, sort of a comparison. What we do there is we subtract out the one-time federal funding that's been drawn down. As you can see, Revenues are up quite a bit. I mean, they were last year, our similar revenues number would have been about 150 million, 149. Now it's 183. So we're about $33 million over. That's made up of a couple, three sort of big chunks, tolls, as we saw in our earlier report. Investment returns, the interest rates are high. We've been able to move more and more of the money into getting that higher interest rate rather than the low rates we're getting prior to this term. Plus, we have the phenomena where as the rates fell there during part of the year, the value of our bonds increased. So we ended up with what we call a paper revenue. We don't actually get money for that, but we have to book it. It's part of the accounting rules. So it shows up also. And then if you look at the next line down, which is consolidated operating expenses, they are up also, not a surprise, but a smaller amount from 164 million to 181 million. So we see about a $17 million increase, and that's salaries, benefits, a little bit of depreciation and professional development. And it's a relatively significant amount. You wouldn't expect that except for the fact that the district is operating more, doing more things, operating more services this year than last year. I mean, small amounts, but it's going up part of the increase that you're seeing there. But overall, the most important thing in the bottom corner there of the table, the number is still positive, $1.7 million. That means, the district's revenue this year is $1.7 million so far through 9 months than what its expenses are this year. So, and we're expecting that trend to get a little better for May, April and May. And then June tends to be due to a number of different accounting things and other costs that come in your last month here, probably will end up being a negative number. So it's be interesting to see how we finish out the year. But it'll be much better than what we had projected when we were all talking about this, you say 18 months ago, putting together that budget.
It's great to see the parentheses go away. Any questions, comments, or concerns on this particular item? Thank you. Continue.
So page 71 is the capital, and as we will just touch on this, through 3 quarters of the year, 75% would be sort of if everything were running abnormally perfect. And it's at 74%, and of course that mix of some parts of our projects are going a little better than they expected, and some parts of our projects are not spending as fast. Overall, it's going quite close to what you would expect, what you would project. And there isn't any particular project to point out at this time. Following the front page on 71 are some tables that graphically show the same data. If any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Hands raised. Continue.
Those are it for my reports. Your next one is the item 10, right? Are we up to that?
Yeah. Thank you, Joe. Thank you for all the work. Thank you to you and your staff. I will ask if there's any public comment on items 7, 8, or 9.
We have no public commenters on 8 or 9.
Great. That will move on to item number 10, which is the review of district's fiscal year 23-24 third quarterly report of judgments and settled claims. We have Kelly Vitale to let us know what that entails.
If you have any questions, there were only 2 workers' comp settlements this particular quarter, and then the remaining 5 were from the general liability line. And you'll see in question, it's because I've been hard on a couple of really big settlements that we're bringing you today. So hopefully the workers' comp numbers will improve next quarter.
Great. Thank you, Kelly. Any questions for Kelly on? Please, go ahead.
I just need to tell Kelly, thank you again on behalf of all of us. A lot of what she does is quiet. We don't hear it till the end.
You'll have to show that.
Internal work. How's that?
Yes.
Anyway, I do recognize how much you save the district in our workers' comp claims. It's in our best interest to keep you thanked. So we appreciate it.
To give you an idea, when I started, we had over 400 open workers' comp claims, and today we have 181.
Wow. Great job.
But that also means that we're working safe to and less bad injuries. So thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate it.
Director Hernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning. Thank you so much. Echoing what my colleague has said about you, we appreciate everything that you do here. And you just addressed in your comment that you made my question, and that is, are you seeing any trends with regard to the workman's comp injury patterns? And is there anything that additional that we can do to sort of mitigate some of the problems?
Not seeing any new trends. No, it's the same over and over because we have some pretty arduous positions, right? And then we have some that are sedentary, and sedentary in nature is sometimes the biggest kid that's out there, right? Our operators that are sitting and then our laborers. So it's nothing new, right? It's the same thing, but it's teaching better body mechanics, helping them, making sure that they get the right treatment immediately after the injuries. A couple of things that I set up when I came here to expedite treatment, and that's something that the district wasn't utilizing before. And we have what's called a utilization review process that's filed with the state self-insured, and so I had that filing updated to approve so that I could, myself and Karen through the claims adjuster, could automatically approve treatment. There were 6 or 7 red treatments that we could approve without to go through the UR process. So much like when you go to the doctor and you have to wait for, can I go to physical therapy? Can I get the MRI? So those are some of the components that Karen and I would just automatically authorize because I don't want to wait. I don't want to wait to get to pediatric injury when I have a wrench to shoulder or a female that twisted her knee, getting in and out of the bus. I want right now. I'd rather go pay for the MRI. We have reduced rates. And I'd rather find out now because I don't want that person going through conservative care when they have torn meniscus or rotator cuff. So we have put that in place to expedite care. I think it's been pretty successful. The adjusters are thankful that we have that available because that also can become contentious. Somebody thinks they're not getting the treatment that they need. They don't feel like they're seen or heard, and they're hurt. So I think that has also been helpful.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else?
You can just see the passion with which she does. I do love claims.
It's the only world.
Thank you.
Kelly, I can tell you that I've been trying to bring some of the things that the Bridge District does in terms of the workman's comp to our county, including what you just spoke about in terms of getting out in front of that treatment as opposed to fighting those things and meanwhile losing the ability of that individual, especially when recruitment, retention, all those different issues are so big. So thank you for the work that you do. Imitation is that
I have a
flattering.
few of you have had me meet with a couple of agencies that you're affiliated with outside of this to try to help. And I think that I was a warrior before my time because I was on the other side, I wasn't on the employee side. And when I would come to the public agencies to speak, to try to get them to resolve the claims, looked at me like I'd lost my mind. We're a public agency, we don't spend money, but to try to help them understand that you have to spend a little bit to save, right? And it's really, I get routine, I get calls asking me about the savings or what have I done. Our TPA asked to use our model when they've done other RFPs. So I think that it's working slowly, it might start coming on.
That's great. Thank you very much. Again, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
I just wanted to thank you as well. That's a phenomenal record of the number of claims that have been resolved since you got here.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for your lonely, happy work.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thanks, Kelly. This is an informational item. Just double check. Any
That's
public
correct.
comment?
We have no public comments for this item.
All right, we'll move back then to item number 11, which is review of the auditor controller's fiscal year 23-24 third quarterly report and authorized budget adjustments and budget transfers under the general manager's authority. Joe?
Thank you. For the committee, there were no transfers in this report for the operating budget, and there were just one that had a financial impact on the capital side, and that was something approved by the board itself earlier. So if there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer them in the details or in the pages following this report.
Any questions for Joe on this particular item? I am not seeing any hands raised, so we'll move on then to item number 12, which is review of the audit controller's fiscal year 23-24 third quarterly report on procurement actions under the general manager's authority.
Again, I For this particular report to the committee, I don't have any details to point out specifically. Action does pick up a little in the third quarter, which you noticed by the number of activities that took place. But outside of that, there were nothing, if there are any particular questions on the items that are listed on the pages following this title page, I'm happy to answer them.
Great. Anyone have any questions on that? Director Park.
Thank you. Joe, I have a question that's probably a little bit off the wall here. My daughter-in-law has been busy in other parts of the Bay Area asking organizations if they get any kind of kickbacks from using certain kinds of materials or using certain kinds of items, I guess. Do we have any, does that happen in our procurement at all? I know that Director Hernandez spent a lot of time on procurement. Do any of the companies pay us to use their product?
Not in those words or terms, no.
Okay, you don't have to answer that right
The district is
now. Answer that, please.
agency, the district puts out RFPs or requests for proposals in a variety of different manners, which are all approved by the board and above board. And in those, a company would put forth their lowest price, and then they get awarded the bid or the purchase.
I understand.
So
that process.
in that process, they may reduce their prices and give us a better price than they give someone else. That may happen, but there isn't in our process. There's no place, room, nor ability for there to be a sort of looping flow, and there's also no incentive to do that in our organization. They would just put their low price up front.
Sure.
They would say,
give us their best price.
this is what we can give you.
Right,
we
they
can
don't
give you
give us a
this.
price and then
Yeah.
No
enhance
contingent,
it. Okay.
no contingency fees coming back to us, no kickbacks.
I assumed that was true, but I had to ask. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other questions for Joe? Seeing no hands raised. Again, just double checking on public comment. I also want to, before we continue to item 13, we have closed session. But I want to ask my colleagues if there's no objections to accommodate the public and take item 14, which is a general to comment now instead of after the closed session. Are there any objections to that? Seeing none, is there anyone from the public wishing to address either item number 12 or item number 14 under public comment?
We are going to go to Justine just to double check that we didn't miss anybody since we're continuing through all the items. So Justine, I'm going to turn it over to you. Do we have any speakers on the line? We have no speakers in the room.
If you don't mind, I'm just going to poll quickly. That would be great. Thank you. Is there anyone that's joined us that would like to speak this morning? Please use ** to unmute yourself and let me know. This is for the Finance-Auditing Committee meeting. Okay, I'm not hearing anybody. Thank you.
All right, we have no speakers in the room or online.
Great, thank you. So thanks everyone for your patience. We'll be placing the public on hold for the duration of our closed session item and return after closed session to adjourn the meeting. And I'll look to Attorney Kim Manolius to take us into closed session. Kim?
Thanks, Chair Abbott. At this time, the Finance Auditing Committee will go into closed session for conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation under Government Code Section 54956.9A for two matters listed on the agenda, that concerning Linda Lee Green Danzy and Nicholas Gomez.
Thank you for your patience, everyone. While we're in closed session, I'd like to remind you to please keep your own devices muted. Thanks so much.
All right, now we're back in open session.
Thank you. The Finance Auditing Committee met in closed session on the two matters listed on the agenda and gave its lawyer appropriate guidance as to how to handle the matters.
Great, thank you very much. And with that, brings us to the end of our meeting today, and I'll look for a motion to adjourn. We have a motion and a second, and hearing no objection, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much.
All right, thank you. Time is 10:36. We will start rules at 10:45.